Boop. And there I am. Just like that, from astrology and alchemy to a live pop-in. Just really quickly as I finish up these two decks, I want to get them documented and show those people who are looking at the new decks that I have what they look like, so I can send you each link. But I've got two more decks to go through. So if you're just now tuning in, shame on you. That's okay. I just recently was explaining to the listeners of Astrology and Alchemy that when you get a tarot deck, when you have your own energy, when you have your own vibe, when you're out shopping for your own tools, right, Chet? You have no idea what you may be getting. Each and every tarot deck, really, Sarah? Deck has its own vibe because of the illustrator that is penning and painting the art behind what they, I hope, have researched or know the tarot story to be. If you've learned tarot through numerology or just ancient study, it's all the same, by the way. No matter what culture you learn it from, it's going to be the same, which is very cool. But tarot is a really cool art, and it's consistent form of divination that I use all the time. And so knowing that it means the same no matter what deck you use, but that each individual deck is going to have kind of a vibe to it, to me, that's really cool. And so I like to know if I'm in a certain energy or if there's a certain alchemy in the environment or just a certain vibe going on, maybe the summer solstice or whatever's coming up, a certain holiday, or somebody tells me that they have a particular hobby or interest. I want to fine tune that divination tool to fit them specifically. So we did the Ink Witch Tarot deck. This is a really cool, calm, gentle, welcoming energy. I really like it. The Hoodoo Tarot, a little darker, a little more in depth, definitely more diverse for culture. Imagery is a little bit heavier. And this is something that if you're under the age of 25, I probably wouldn't even use this deck with you because of some of the themes that are illustrated throughout it. It's very haunting, and it's based on, our history here in America. So, pretty important, I think. But I have two more decks to share with you that I think are very cool. And I have, of course, just drawers and buckets and bags full of tarot decks. So if you have one of particular interest, or you're wondering even if one that might be scary or one that might be strange, let me know and I'll pull them from my collection. Jessica says, man, if you have time, I would love a reading. It has been a bit. And Leanna says, hello. And Steph says, you're back. Man, we got new people and old people that joined us from that stream. Welcome, guys. Okay, so the next tarot deck I have, and Jessica, I want you to start thinking about this question that you have for a reading, and I'm going to pull this. If you are drawn to this deck, let me know. This is the Tarot del Fuego, right? Very fiery, very colorful, very in your face. The really bright colors, the almost simple, childlike art. It's kind of eye-catching. It makes you think that this deck is going to be simple and easy to understand and maybe, not too crazy or complex. However, this deck has an energy of Salvador Dali meets Quentin Tarantino. This deck is crazy. You're going to hear my husband in studio. He's jamming out. The art is the same on all the cards on one side, right, Jessica? Go ahead and think of your question as we shuffle it. And you'll see with the pictures what I mean. It's actually quite complicated and in your face. Like a child that draws a picture painting of something with 5 heads and is, what is that? These are the aliens that eat me in the night, Mom. It's like, whoa, shit. It's really crazy. But yet it's so pretty. Here it is. Are you ready? Whatever your question is. Steph said, I've seen this deck before. It is dope. It is cool. It's a very powerful deck too. I would say this is a powerful deck. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Boom. So this is the 9 of Wands. 9 of Wands. 9, it's 90%. It's anticipation. You're almost there. Where are the most bodies on Mount Everest? Not the top or the bottom. Right before the top. Right when you think that you're fine and you're in the clear and you're really not. The 9 would suggest don't give up, hang in there, but also don't lose focus. And it's the 9 of Wands. So it's the 9 of fire. This would be like, man, if you're climbing this mountain to a promotion, if you've been doing all the things and renovating that car and you're just about to be done, don't think you're done. Something is still yet to kind of hit you in the face. You're going to find that you're not quite to that little cup of water, and that that little cup of water is not going to be enough. Look at what is going on. The Nine of Wands would suggest that there's a lot going on around you, and that there's a lot of fire and impulse and crazy things to try and manage and control, and you can't control it all. So you have to be able to keep focused on where that one little cup of water is going to go, and maybe you just take a sip and you drench your hair and you slide down the mountainside and let it all burn. You're going to have to really kind of think a little bit outside of the bubble, because there's no thinking going on at all around you in the fight or flight space that is. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything is burning. Like it's, people are going to be running around in a panic space, and don't panic. Don't panic. Instead, you want to think about what you're doing. So let's look at that. Steph said, man, I feel that heat. I know it's kind of saying like, did it. It's when Tetris and the music starts to play very fast and you start to kind of freak out. Don't. So for any of you joining and you think, man, I want a reading from this deck, think of the question right now. Maybe Leanna, maybe Steph, Brandy. Think about the personality of this deck again. How different this is. How it feels. The colors. Holy cow. This is the 10 of Cups. Very different. We're not pulling aces like we were the one deck. We're not pulling brothers and sisters and knights like we were the other deck. This is 9 and 10. 90% and the 10. Kind of there in the middle. At the kind of completion of something. But yet, Cups. Look at all the wine glasses. Look at all the emotion. Look at all the pots of things that you have grown. Look at how that is underneath the foundation of this castle. All the stuff on the outside, the castle with the fire and the burning and the eyes and all the stuff on the outside, underneath, underground. It's almost illustrating that water and how it is beneath the surface. There's a lot of emotional stuff that you have planted, and not all of it has been able to grow and ripen because it maybe wasn't pointed in the right direction at the time. See some of these cups? They're closed over the things, keeping them contained rather than letting them grow like a vessel. And I love how that depicts the heart and how you can block things sometimes by smothering it or giving it not enough nurturing or too much nurturing, and how that actually looks visually. You know what I mean? So this is really perfect to being done with that emotional thing already. You've reached the limit, the 10, and 10 is 100%. So you've been there, you've done that. Are you going to buy the t-shirt? That'd be a little extra. You don't need to do that. You can say you were here without needing the shirt, but you are done. The ride is over and you can now leave. This is the 10 of Cups. Ooh, okay. So I love this deck. This is very different than the Hoodoo deck or the Witch Ink deck. Colorful, bright, in your face, bold. It's mature, I would say. It's not immature, but it's kind of scary at times. So you kind of have to be ready for whatever it's going to tell you. Sharma says, may I ask a question? Absolutely. Ask a question. Feel free to ask a question. I right now am just going through these decks to share how different the personality can be and how using one deck from the next might really change the energy of a reading, just because the illustration, not because the meanings are that different, but just because the personality that a tarot deck can bring to it. But feel free to ask a question. And if you're wanting a reading and a deck speaks to you, go ahead and think of that. You don't have to speak it out loud. I don't need to do a cold reading for you and reframe your question. The card will be pulled in and of the right time. That's the divination part of it. So of these new decks that I picked up, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have an oracle deck over here. I'll show you what and how an oracle deck looks different. Tarot decks are the same. They have the 22 major arcana, and then you've got your minor arcana of the 4 suits: earth, water, air, fire, from ace to king, like a set of playing cards. And knowing that you've got your major arcana, which I don't know how many of you have ever seen the Tree of Life. Maybe you're a yogi or something like that. maybe you're into the Torah or different religious theology, scripture, things like that, or just sacred geometry. But this actually is the illustration of the 22 major arcana, because all the little lines you draw in between the 10 Sephiroth, it adds up to 22. So that's where you're getting those 22 major life cards. And then the minor cards are just suits to give you guidance of how far along you are in that space. Very, very easy to learn. And once you get it, it's the same with every tarot deck, which is great. Okay. Sharma says, there is some dispute between my brother and sister-in-law because of a third girl. Both of the family are trying to resolve this issue, but the sister-in-law is very angry at this point in time. Okay, sounds like a family matter. Sounds kind of wild. That's okay. Okay. This is the deck that I have been using. Of these 4 that I got, I really loved this energy. 1, I love ravens. I love crows. Who doesn't, right? Especially if you're a necromancer or a witch, you probably are going to be fond of Hugin and Mugen. If you're into Nordic mythology, if you're into just the intelligence of a creature, up here in northern Minnesota, we have a ton of ravens. So I have been feeding them for years, and they come and see me every day, and I have them tattooed on my body. So the Murder of Crows tarot, and it's beautiful. It's like this red hologram. And I was like, dang, that's pretty sweet. I want to get that deck. I wonder what the cards look like. And it was not a disappointment. The deck is just as beautiful. They're small, gentle cards. The outside looks kind of like, maybe an H.R. Geiger trippy thing. Okay. But the art on the cards themselves are black and white, Plague Doctor themed. Very, very cool. And as Steph shared in the deck, crows, they can remember individuals. They can, and they use tools. They're very, very smart. So I love the idea of the Nordic mythology using Hugin and Mugen as the messengers of Odin to deliver news from the other worlds and the underworld and spaces in between worlds. And if you're a conspiracy theorist, you believe birds aren't real. I like that. I like this theme that this deck has, and the colors are very pretty, and the artwork is very, very beautiful. So as I kind of shuffle this deck, I want you to think about a question, maybe as, for example, Sharma. She has shared specifically this question. The sister-in-law, very angry about a person being thrown into this maybe love triangle. What do we know, or what would divination tell us as we're shuffling the deck? Well, what is the personality of this tarot? Ooh. The Magician. This is a major arcana card. Dun, dun, dun. Talk about major arcana. So it's either going to be 0 through 21 or 1 through 22. And you kind of get an idea based on, 0 is the Fool or 1 is the Fool. So you'll kind of know depending on how it starts. And the Fool should be drawn with nothing but himself. The Fool is the beginning of time, the lone walker, if you will, the unmoved mover. But after the Fool is the Magician, the idea of the observer who has all the tools. So they're usually shown with earth, water, air, and fire. So here he has a raven, he has a pentacle, he has a sword, he has a wand, and he has a cup. That'll always be illustrated on the Magician card. However the artist is drawing it, you should see all 4 elements drawn into the card, because the Magician, like David Copperfield, has absolutely everything at his disposal. But of course, the Magician teaches us, the number 1, the observer, the Schrodinger's cat, that the most important thing is the audience, the reciprocator, the yin and yang, the harmony requiring the audience. So the Magician has all the themes, has all the capabilities and all the resources at his disposal, like man on a barren planet. And once you're aware of your purpose, you then need to spread that love and spread that purpose. And what is that going to mean for the audience? So as far as like Sharma, this is a major life theme that would suggest that the person needs to be aware of who their audience is and what they're doing things for. Because the jester in a knight's castle or a king's castle, right, they're there to entertain, but not just in good times and bad times. They're there to distract. They're there to bring about a different energy when maybe one needs to be distracted. They facilitate a vibe. And that can change your whole future and your present. So, for example, if you have a third person coming into your space and they're not making it better, if you have another person, a third girl, a collaborative teammate, and they're making things worse, there's now drama, there's concern, there's jealousy, there's all this other stuff. It's very, very important to know what variable was brought to the equation, if it was good or bad, and if it's not, to remove it. So, what would you say if the question was, can I trust this person? Should I look at it as they are using illusion? What I would say is, can you trust this person? What are they doing when they're being watched versus when no one's watching? Because trust is the ability to predict, and that's it. So if you can know that this person will do A, B, and C when watched, as well as not when watched, that's a good indication of character and integrity. You know, you're a measure of a man is what he does when no one is watching. That big brother, or if you don't have religion or morals or some man in the sky looming over you with punishment or consequence, it's this kind of belief that maybe you have a true altruistic nature of the things that you do next. So Jenny, Steph, Meta, all of you guys joining me, the magician would suggest you have all the resources at your disposal. You have everything you need, but the way you look at it and the way people see you will very much influence what's going to happen next. So be aware of your audience, and also that you are your own audience too, because you live with yourself. But just the observation effect is relative to the magician. So this deck, very beautiful, black and white. I've been wanting to go through on this deck. I will be honest, the creator and illustrator, they put the wands and the symbols of what they are very small on the bottom. See that? Very, very tiny. The knight. I can't even see it. I can't even see it because my eyes aren't that great. And you're like, dang, well, what is this? Well, I can look at it and I see its pentacles are on a shield. So luckily I know that that's pentacles. So it's a Knight of Pentacles. I almost want to, on some of these, go through and draw what it is because it's hard to see on some of them. The art is so freaking awesome that you could take any one card and blow it up in an 8x10 or a poster, and it would just be cool. It would be super cool. If you have a gothic friend or family member and you want to get them a cool gift, a tarot deck or art, this is the deck. And it's very matter of fact. It's not looming, ominous, haunting. It's not in your face, powerful, like, you know, Rob Zombie. It's not the hoodoo deck that's going to be like do 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 do, like a Hans Zimmer kind of a song. And it's not like this, which reminds me of The Last Unicorn. I really get a Last Unicorn vibe with this, like the song America, the band America, and all completely different decks. So these are the 4 decks that I have on my desk right now. And to know that these are, 4 tarot decks. So essentially a person could ask me a question and I could pull from all 4 decks and get 4 different answers. And it's almost as if I'm sitting at a table with 4 different people and I have an idea of who these are. So since I work with the archetype wheel and personality traits, as far as like sacred geometry goes, I feel like I get to put them in the archetype wheel. I already know who and what is speaking to me, and the divination starts to make a lot more sense. But let's finish this session out tonight, guys, with an oracle deck. So an oracle deck, man, you really don't know what you're going to get, because an oracle deck can have 3 cards or 300 cards. Tarot deck is always going to have the same amount. The only thing you need to know with the tarot deck is whether or not it comes with a guide. If it comes with anything additional that the artist wanted you to know, sometimes it'll have additional little cards in it, like, jester or something. I have one that has a happy nut, or one that has a golden compass, a Harry Potter deck that has a snitch. The different tarot decks that have like a magic wild card, which is, unique to the artist, and it will be additional. But for the most part, all tarot decks are the same, as opposed to the art. But an oracle deck can be completely, it's like a book. It could be about anything. It could be big print, small print, pictures, no pictures. It could be any genre. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. So oracle decks are quite specific. So when I have an oracle deck, I will usually couple it with a tarot deck that I think it talks well with or has a similar vibe to. Or when people are asking me specific questions, and then I lay out my tarot spread, whether it's a Celtic cross or the past, present, and future, or whatever it is that I'm doing for a tarot reading, I might also at the very end just pull an oracle card. So I got this oracle deck recently. You can see it's quite thin. It doesn't have a lot of cards in it. It doesn't have, 80 or 100. In fact, I think, I don't know how many it has. They're not numbered. There's 20. There's 21. I think it has 30. There's 28. Nope, there's 32. Does it only have 32? Maybe 33. The highest one I'm seeing is 32. I think it has 32 cards in it, which is kind of a random number. So Manju, anybody joining us, if you want a reading, right now is the time for an oracle reading. An oracle's definite, completely different. This is going to maybe have an answer or a picture or something relevant to whatever your question is. What I love, Madame Lenormand, one of my favorite magicians of our time, a woman leader of divination, to Napoleon, actually. And she would suggest framing. She was one of the first people to really talk about how important framing is. And framing is all about knowing what your question is. You don't even have to share it with me. Okay? So Manju, think of your question. Jenny, who says, man, I'm really curious. Carissa, yes. Think of it. You have it? So this oracle deck is giving me a card. It is giving me a card. And this is what I love about these, is this is also an opportunity for you to use your intuition. Oracle cards, because you may not know, Manju, it does not have to be yes or no. It can be, what is the theme here? What is the obstacle? What is it that I need to know? What's going on with this? Think about what specific information might help you reach your goal. What information could I have? Maybe shadow work that you need to use. I do have a Lenormand deck, Steph. I've got 2 or 3 of them, which is kind of interesting. And I love those decks. The way that different people lay them out differently according to how they think that she should lay them out, I think is interesting, how they tell a story. Anyway, Manju, Leanna, any of these. I want you to think about what that obstacle might be, or what the theme that you need to go into, what the reflection to take into meditation might be, what to take to the gym and work out. Oracle decks can be quite specific. Obsession. I think of my mother's perfume growing up. She used to wear Obsession at certain times. My mother is passed away now. I also see that this person on here looks like Peter Pan to me. And when I think of Pan and Peter Pan, whether it's the thelemic or pagan representation of Pan, a nature entity, a Loki type energy, a curious, malevolent, kind of wild energy that talks about wanting to be obsessed. Possession, different than obsession. And obsession, as far as the neurolinguistics go, look up the definition of that word. That's so powerful. What is it that motivates you beyond what is healthy for you? What is it that moves you to the point that you can have it beyond capacity and you still want more? It has nothing to do with satiation or limits. What does it have to do with? Obsession. It's quite individualized. It's very much about the heart, very specific to things that you're seeing. This person looks like they're holding almost a reflective mirror, or like a star, like a wish, like a hope, something in their hand. Looks like it's part from their body, like they're glowing, like it's a part of themselves. I think it's a very interesting artistic expression of obsession. When I think of Peter Pan, actually, and I think of the story that this is an entity coming to take children who are unwanted or orphaned children or dead children or children that die, because all children dying is, dying too soon. And that Peter Pan takes you to a place beyond the stars where you never grow old and you live there with all the other kids, and it's never, never land. And that it's this beautiful place that a fairy guides you with fairy dust and you float away, and that children are there missing their mothers. And there can be some kind of, scary themes with that, as there are most childhood tales. But the obsession that you want to be young forever or live somewhere safe or have a completely one-sided thing is almost unnatural. It defies moderation. So what is it that you're trying to get a certain amount of, and what are those limits, and do you know? This oracle card is very specific to that theme. So I use oracle cards, if I'm doing therapy. I will do these in a clinical space sometimes. They can be very helpful to facilitate discussion. What does this card mean to you? What do you think that this means? And let's kind of talk about it. It could be from past trauma. It can be an obsession, meaning that you're stuck in that space and that it's just the O word there. It's so intimate, I think, to all of your orifices that it's very specific to desire as well. So obsession neurolinguistically is a pretty powerful space, I think, to do reflection work. But the Dark Mirror Oracle deck, there's not very many cards, but man, are they specific. And can you really go down a wormhole with each and every one of them? So I want to show you a few more. If that card didn't speak to you, or you're like, I don't know. Okay, let's try another one. Think of that question in your mind right now. What obstacle should I be getting through in this area of my life? Or what about this? What could you show me about this universe? Ugh. This is the struggle for me specifically. Not very many people have phobias. There's a difference between a fear and a phobia. I dance on the line between those two with this word. A parasite. Parasitic. Man, look at this. And this kind of shows a person with their braided hair, braiding into the ivy like an indigenous person into the night. But those veins and the ivy growing into a space where you're not sure if it's a dead person growing into compost or a very spiritual person being in tune with nature. So being in tune with your shadow side, like Steph shared in the chat, this is a very deep deck that would ask you to then analyze, what is a parasite to you? And what are you a parasite to? Are you symbiotic? Are you healthy with the things that you feel you need to be attached to in your life? Dependency. Are those attachments secure or unsecure or anxious or unsafe? A parasite, if it's separated from its host, will die. But after how long? What does it need? Does it want your entire life force? Or is it kind of like a mosquito? It just needs enough blood to suffice and go along. And it's really only taken blood when it's a pregnant female, not so much the other ones. It's like, what is that? Well, knowing your parasites, both how you are and what is to you, would be very relative when pulling this card. And I would ideally, if I were doing a full reading, be pulling this in conjunction with a tarot reading. So maybe 3 or 4 cards in a tarot spread, being like, okay, kind of give me, as if I were doing a coloring book, like what's my coloring book genre? And then what colors am I using? It's really going to give you a better picture of everything as it comes full circle, which I really like. I like to use more than one divination tool to do a divination reading. I have a really cool mat that I will lay out cards, and it looks like a big spirit board, but it's an Obscura spirit board, and it has a lot of different little cryptic symbols on it and runes and throw dice and throw down a tarot card and throw down an oracle card. And every deck that I'm using will definitely give me an idea of what the reading is going to feel like. If someone's asking me a pretty heavy question, I might pull a pretty heavy deck out to communicate with me. Versus if it's a 13-year-old for her birthday and she's just wanting a really fun reading and something lighthearted, I might pull out something really fun and beautiful, maybe my Alice in Wonderland deck and my oracle cards of cats. We might just pull something with a different vibe. So I just wanted to use this time, guys, to show you. And for those who had asked, it's a very common question that, like, man, Leanna said, so it wasn't my question, but how appropriate. I was dealing with lice yesterday. Oh, no. Lice. My boys that have wanted longer hair in the last year. And so the water that they spray on their hair before they go to school and run a comb through it, I put water, half witch hazel. And then I put a lot of the Lice Be Gone. It's a peppermint mix, oregano, peppermint, and tea tree oil, I believe. But like all the essential oil companies will have their own little version of it, but it's like a Pest Be Gone, but I will mix my own. And put those drops in there with like a tablespoon of their favorite hair gel and then shake it up. And I keep it on the sink and I have them spray that into their hair. And I also spray it into all their hats, the little bin that they keep their hats and gloves in that I know they're sharing with people and putting in a big pile at school for lice. So yeah, tea tree oil is my preventative measure. I know that it won't like kill lice or if you already have lice in your hair, but it will deter them so they will not make a home there. And if, any of that little tablespoon of their own hair gel in it, it seems like there's some kind of a sticky something that isn't all the hair gels that I find it just keeps it adhered to them. And Carson said, yeah, and the ticks are really bad this year. I agree. The ticks, the respiratory pollen, all of the things are a little extra this year, guys. I think it is. So the essential oil is totally key. I'm making a dandelion mead right now. And Cranky said, man, I don't miss kids at that age. I know, right? Where everything is covered in snot behind their bed. I'm at that age right now where if I go downstairs to clean their room, I'm going to hide. There's going to be food hidden and there's going to be boogers on the wall, which I don't clean. I make them scrape off and clean. And it's absolutely disgusting. And it doesn't matter how clean or well-behaved your children are. If you have boys, even girls between the ages of 7 and 12, there's probably boogers smeared somewhere, if not under their table where they eat or by their bed where they sleep. It's going to be behind the toilet when they're sitting there pooping, but there's a booger spot. Your kids have one. If you don't know where it's at, that's probably even scarier because at least I know where my kids are at and they have to clean it. But yeah, so there you go. The joys of parenting. Tarot cards will not always help you with that, by the way, but essential oils can where tarot cards can't. Maybe. So anyway, guys, I hope that this finds you well. If you have any questions, be sure and contact me at paranormalsarah.com. I am getting ready for summer, which again, because my kids are younger, that means lunch, that means breakfast, that means summer camp, soccer camp, coding camp, all the camps. So I absolutely love and appreciate all of your investments. If you're thinking of a reading or you want to get a gift, a reading for someone else, I would love that because that's how I pay my bills. So I would appreciate your support. I'm still working on my school. I still work a job and do all the things, but I do absolutely love taking time out to jump in and share with you my passion for divination and parapsychology. So it's good to see you guys if you popped in, and I'm hoping to go live tomorrow evening. And then Thursday evening, we'll be doing astrology and alchemy with Matt. So you guys, I hope that you will sign up for notifications if you're not already. And then I'll see you tomorrow evening for some more free readings. Otherwise, if you just can't wait until then, direct message me and we'll get you a reading set up. All right, guys, have a good evening. Have a wonderful Wednesday, the last day of May, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.